Good afternoon, everybody. The strategy I'm working on today is the cooperative learning strategy. This strategy is on pages 273 through 279 in our assigned textbook. Uh, the cooperative learning strategy is a strategy where students work together to complete a goal. Each member is expected to perform and assign tasks, preceded by a group building activity so students understand the value of working together. So, if students are not used to working as a group, definitely incorporate some team building activities. Those could include having them solve a puzzle together. It could include having them work together to solve a specific, maybe a word problem, or maybe even a conceptual problem. Have them maybe finish a story together. Each of them work on a specific part. Just getting a quick team building activity for students to get used to working together. Okay. The step by step is there's 6 steps to this strategy. The first step is to assign groups and build the team. So you want to make sure your groups don't have friends working with each other. Try to limit that as much as possible. You want to make sure that students have different group members if you can every day, just so that they're not used to the same people and they're just used to working and changing with their roles within the group. Um, the second step is assign roles within the groups before letting your students loose with the group activity. Let them know exactly what their role is in the activity so that they can now start being accountable for their portion of the group work. Okay, so that's one of the things I think I messed up on this year. I wanted to do cooperative learning, but I did not give students specific roles. I just had them, complete objectives as a group. And if a student didn't understand, I would be asking my follow up questions. I'd have the students explain to everybody, make sure that before moving on, everyone knew uh, the information before going to the more difficult task. Okay, so assign roles. Let each person know what they are supposed to do at each given moment in the lesson. And 3, assign the task. So once the students know what their role is, like a timekeeper, maybe a student is supposed to divide up the work amongst the others in the group. Maybe another student is supposed to um, illustrate what the problem is. All right. So once students know what their role is, tell the students, the class, what you expect them to do and how long they have to do it. Definitely give a time limit. I think that's another thing I messed up on is not giving a time limit. Students would then not they wouldn't get the assignment done or the task done. They would take up too much time. So definitely have a timer and keep reminding them of how much time they have left to complete what you need them to finish. Okay, step 4, intervene to ensure full participation. Yes, there will be students that are off task. As soon as you leave a group, they're pretty much are going to probably switch to games or just get off task very quickly. So yes, definitely want to be walking around to make sure students are uh, gearing towards the goal of the activity. And step 5 is report back to the class. See, once students, this is actually another thing I did not do. This part of the strategy. Students will have to show other students what they did. Show them what they did on their progress of the task. So that little portion there is important, so that uh, other students can see how far each other got in the same task and with the same time. 6, it says debrief and examine the group process. And once the activity is done, maybe it's a 15-minute activity, 20 minutes, tell students to stop and reflect. Reflect on what went well, what went bad, and how you would do it differently if you were to do it again, probably next week, okay, with a different group. So, again, these are just the 6 steps to the cooperative learning strategy. And the text example was a math class, Miss Hill's class. They had a state budget activity. The leader were given a line of questions to answer. There was about 7 tasks on there, so each student in the group could be working on their own portion of the tasks. Students could break the tasks up by giving them to each other. English learners could pick first and do the one they're able to do. Yes, that I think that would probably be the best case scenario. You have your English learners do the one that is not too difficult, but not too easy. So you definitely want to give them the first dibs on some of the rules that, or in this case, some of the tasks. So that's what Miss Hill's class did. They had about 7 tasks, and they were very lengthy tasks. So it's not something you can just answer. You actually had to, do some calculations, and which is why I think splitting up the work amongst everybody would be the best option here. Okay. My example, I would have students, have a geometry problem. Make a group of 4. One student is in charge of making the shape out of construction paper. So you have someone working with their hands. Another student is responsible for telling their team about the shape they must make from a post-it note. So I'll be just writing shapes on a post-it note. And one student is just in charge of telling the student, describing it to the person who's making it, constructing it, and that'll be his or her responsibility. The third member is responsible for keeping track of how long it took for their team to finish a current shape. So there'll just be a timekeeper making sure they're on task. So the goal is to get the least amount of time to make everything about the shape. The last member is focusing on the attributes of the shape that the first member is making and posting on and we're going to post that on the wall. So pretty much that fourth person is going to write attributes. So let's say I put a square on a post-it note. Uh, that fourth person is going to have to, write 4 right angles, 4 congruent sides, opposite sides are equal. Everything you can tell about the square, right? You're going to write those as attributes on the construction paper, and they're going to pretty much post that for all the students to see, so that when it's all done, students can now walk around and check and compare and contrast their work with yours or with other groups. And then students will switch roles to have a turn with different responsibilities. So yes, there'll be those 4 roles: timekeeper, someone's just going to be getting a post-it note and telling the person, one of the group members who's actually making the shape, exactly how to make it. Another student is writing down attributes. So each student's going to have a turn with different responsibilities, with different shapes. Okay. The approximation behaviors. So be 4th through 8th, students will actively participate in assigned cooperative learning tasks and understand and perform a defined cooperative group role. So some roles are easier than others, but you want students to be rotating in and out of these different roles so that they build their skills with those different responsibilities. Okay, so